Welcome to my long-awaited every book I read in 2025 video. I have been getting over a cold for weeks now, so I'm finally at a place where my voice works. So just excuse how my voice sounds. I'm going to show you the before. I take all the books that I read this year off my shelf, and then the after, what it looks like after, just to see for fun. Okay, here's the after. So I'm just gonna go down the shelves. They look a little bit different from the last time that you've seen them. Let me hit this shelf. To the top. Those books I am currently reading, so yeah. And this is the after. I took a pretty decent amount off. Specifically on this shelf. I've separated them all into their months, and they're in a really weird shape. Can't talk. Again, please excuse my voice. To preface, I tend to rate books pretty high, so you will see quite a few 5 stars and high ratings in general. I have my laptop behind the camera just so I can tell you some other information. So my goal for 2025 was 20 books, and I ended up reading 37, which is almost double my goal. That's wild. My best reading streak was 85 days, which is pretty good. In 2025, I read 7 audiobooks, 5 ebooks, and I DNF'd 9 books. Those 9 books I did not include in this. If you're curious what 9 books I DNF'd, I'll have them in the description. Also, one last thing before we actually get into this. My average rating of the year was 4.2 stars, which is pretty darn good, in my opinion. The first book I read in 2025 was The Naturals. This is about a group of teenagers who work on cold cases for the FBI. And then a serial killer starts impersonating the murder of our main character's mom. So I think that is pretty fun. The next book I read in 2025 was Divine Dilemma by Ken Ham. I gave this book 4.25 stars, but it's one of those books that's really hard to rate just because it's a nonfiction. I don't know, it talks about why God allows bad things to happen to good people, like death. The next book I read was Anne of Green Gables, and I gave this book 5 stars. This is one of my all-time favorite, comfort books. And it's about an orphan named Anne, and she goes to Green Gables. It kind of follows her life. The next book I read was Romeo and Juliet by Shakespeare. I think I've read this before. I didn't write anything down for the summary. It's basically just a tragedy romance. There's nothing else really to say about it. Those were all the books I read in January. Now, moving on to February. In February, I read And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, which is about 10 people who get trapped on an island with a murderer. And I gave that book 5 stars. And then I read Places We've Never Been by Kasie West, and I adored this book. I gave it 4.5 stars. And it's about Nora and Skylar, who were best friends before Skylar moved away. But now they'll see each other again for this big family road trip that they're going on. But they also have not talked in 4 years. Or maybe not 4 years, but they haven't talked in a while. So, yeah, it's fun. It's childhood best friends, still lovers. So, it's really cute. Also, hey, the blue kind of matches my nails. In March, I read The Murder, what's this called? On the Orient Express. I think I give this 5 stars. Looking back, I think I might change this rating. Just because, the ending's a little disappointing. But it's not too bad. This is about the detective Hercule Poirot, who gets stuck aboard the Orient Express in a snowstorm while a murderer is on board, and he has to investigate the murder of this man who was found stabbed to death in his compartment. In April, I did not read anything. In May, I read A Rose for Melinda by Lurleen McDaniel. I gave this book 3 stars. This book is about an aspiring ballerina who gets diagnosed with leukemia. And the story is told through emails and letters and like diary entries. Next, I read Killer Instinct, which is the... Where did that book go? Which is the in this series. This is a 4-book series, so you'll see this series throughout the whole video. To be honest, I don't really remember what happens in this book. I remember who the murderers are, but I do not remember really any details. I gave this one 4 stars, by the way. Next, in May, I read The Bad Beginning by Lemony Snicket, and this is one of the audiobooks. I gave that 3 stars. Then I read The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie, and I rated this book 5 stars. I will say, do not look up the summary of this book because it will spoil it for you. I was looking it up to write the script, and it would spoil the whole book, so don't do that because it's a really amazing book. Just read it. Just read this book. That's all. Just read it. Next, I read The Reptile Room by Lemony Snicket, and I also gave that one 3 stars. Next, we're moving on to June. I read the entire Divergent series, plus We Can Be Mended, which is not technically a book, but yeah, that one sucked, by the way. I hate it. I gave that one 1 star. This is a 5-star series. Definitely one of my favorites. This novella, I gave 2.75 stars just because it's a novella. And then in June, I picked this up, which was almost a DNF. I did DNF this once, and then I came back to it. And let's just say I have a lot of thoughts on this book, okay? I did not enjoy it. I gave it 1 star. I was actually told that I need to read Caraval first, and then I would like this. I don't know if that's true, but I do think I need to read Caraval before finishing the series, because I don't care. If you want to see all of my thoughts on this, which could definitely be a separate video, let me know in the comments. This is the spin-off series to Caraval. It's about a girl named Evangeline Fox who wants her own happy ending, and after the love of her life ditches her for her stepsister, she makes a deal with the Prince of Hearts, Jax. Which sounds interesting, but it wasn't it for me. I don't think I like romantasy though. Moving on to July, I read The Wide Window by Lemony Snicket, and I gave that 3 stars as well. I read Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. I gave that 3.75 stars. I was definitely disappointed with the lack of answers that I got. It just left me with more questions, and it's about Stevie, who goes to the school to investigate. I forgot the name of the school. She goes to the school to investigate the murder that happened several years earlier. And then the murderer, Truly Devious, reappears. It's a little disappointing, but I still enjoyed it enough to give it almost 4 stars. So. And then I read When in Rome by Sarah Adams, and I gave this book 4.75 stars. I love this book. It's a small-town romance. So basically, pop star. Her name's Ray Rose. Her actual name is Amelia, but her stage name is Ray Rose. She is burnt out, so she flees in the night. And she's so obsessed with this movie star that I can't remember the name of. Audrey Hepburn, that's the name of it. Amelia is so obsessed with Audrey Hepburn. Her go-to, her comfort, that she always watched her movies with her mom. She just types in a random town, Rome, and she ends up going to Rome, Kentucky, and getting stuck in the yard of Noah Walker. Next, I read The Murder at the Vicarage. I gave it 3 stars. This is another one of those books that I changed the rating to because it was a little disappointing, to be honest. It was okay. It was definitely not my favorite. Hey, this is Editor Ann popping in real quick. I forgot to talk about one book that I read that was 6 Months Later by Natalie D. Richards. It's about this girl who falls asleep in study hall, and when she wakes up again, she can't remember the last 6 months of her life. Which sounds very interesting again, but the execution was not there. I ended up rating this book 1 star. I did enjoy it. Like, it was fun to read. It was just really weird and not... It was a 1-star book, so let's get back to the rest of the video. And in July was The Great Gatsby. This is a really good book, and the movie is pretty perfect. I gave this 5 stars. I only read 1 book in the next 2 months. In August, I read Oliver Twist. I rated this 5 stars. It's one of my favorites of the year. And then in September, I read The Princess Bride, and I gave this 4 stars. It was decent. I don't really know, like, the summary of this. October was a pretty good reading month. First, I read The Outsiders. I'm absolutely obsessed with this book. I gave it 5 stars. So there's Socias and there's Greasers. The Greases are poor and the Socias are rich. They always get into fights and then somebody dies. And then it gets real. And then I read All In, which is the 3rd book in the Natural series. And I think this was my favorite book in the series. I gave this book 5 stars. And then I read White Nights by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I gave it 5 stars. Then I read The Vanishing Stair by Maureen Johnson, which is the 2nd book in the Truly Devious series. I gave this book 4 stars. It did answer most of my questions, but we still have one. We still have to find out where the daughter went. So, moving on to November. I read The Stay Backward as Forward by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and I gave this book 5 stars. It's part of the Inheritance Game series, and it follows Toby and Hannah. Oh, I love this book. It was heartbreaking. And then I read the last book in the Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I read this one on audiobook, and actually I binged the entire thing in 1 day. So I think the ending was a little bit unsatisfying in my opinion, just because of the thing that happened could have been prevented. It was just like you could just wait like 2 more seconds. Just like 2 seconds. You could all live happily. Anyways, I gave this book 4.5 stars. And then I read Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. I gave it 4.5 stars. And we follow Annie, the sister of Noah, and Amelia's bodyguard, Will. Annie is trying to find the love of her life. She needs a dating coach, so she asked Will to be her dating coach. The last book I read in November was Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This was my favorite book of the year. I gave this book 5 stars. It's about a guy who wakes up in space and doesn't know who he is, what he's doing there, and he has to figure out how to save the planet. I'm going to give you must-reads at the end of the video. And finally, we have made it to December. I read 3 books in December, so let's talk about them. The first book I read in December was A Christmas Carol. I loved the audiobook with David Soshu. His pronunciation of his last name is something close to sushi. I gave this 4 stars, by the way. Next, I read The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. This book was recommended to me, and I loved it. I gave it 4.25 stars. and it's about Jack Stapleton, the famous movie star, who's going home to his family to be with his mom while she fights breast cancer. For safety, his team hired a bodyguard, but he doesn't want his family to be worried about him, so he ends up fake dating Hannah, who was his bodyguard. The last book I read in 2025, before I completely gave up for the year because I could not find anything I wanted to read, is My Favorite Color is Mistletoe by Austen. I gave this book 4.5 stars. It's about Audrey, who got dumped right before her Christmas Yuletide competition, and Jax, Audrey's ex-boyfriend's roommate, I don't know, it was a handful, needs a date to a wedding that his ex is gonna be at that he does not want to see his ex, so they fake date to help each other out. Now, let's hurry up and get to this must-read section of the video, because this video is 40 minutes. Okay, 7 books you must read, and let's do this lightning speed. Number 1, Oliver Twist. Number 2, The Outsiders. 3, Divergent. 4, Anne of Green Gables. 5, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. 6, The Great Gatsby. Lastly, number 7, Project Hail Mary. Thank you all so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed this chaos. I want to get this video out tomorrow, and it's 40 minutes. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you don't mind, and like the video. And comment your most anticipated read of 2026. I'll see you next time.